Hey guys, what is up? My name is Kaylee and welcome back to my channel. Another month has passed. December is now over. It is time to see what I read in December and how I did. December was a really good reading month. I have a ton of 5 stars. I read 11 things, 4 graphic novels and 7 novels, and I think I rated almost all of them 5 stars with the exception of 1 3-star graphic novel and 2 3-star novels. The rest were 5 stars, so let's get into it and see what made the cut. So as I said, I had 1 3-star graphic novel, and that is The Manhattan Project, Science is Bad by Jonathan Hickman. If you didn't know, Jonathan Hickman also wrote East of West, and East of West is one of my all-time favorite graphic novel series. So I went into this with high hopes, and it almost lived up to expectations, but I think subject matter-wise, it just wasn't for me. This is a story about time travel and about World War II and about scientists. You got Albert Einstein and Adolf Hitler. There's a lot going on in it, but essentially it's about the bomb and the morality and the things the United States did. Like, they froze Richard Nixon in order to bring him back artificially to be like a bad guy president. They also frame, alright, well, fuck it, I don't remember, but it was just weird. Like, one of the main characters has multiple personalities, and he had a twin brother that he killed, and like he eats the people he kills. It was very strange, not very cohesive. Also, I don't really care for like very masculine war stories, and that's kind of what this was. So it wasn't that great, but it wasn't that bad. If you're interested in science or World War II or time travel, maybe check it out. I don't personally recommend it, but it was okay. 3-star. My next 2 graphic novels were all 5 stars, and they were all just as good as one another, so the order of this doesn't really matter. And so I'm just gonna go with what I'm going with, and that is Zodiac Star Force Volume 2. This is a continuation, obviously, of the first volume, and the same main characters that have powers based on their zodiac signs. In this one, you meet more people with powers that are from a different country, and they all meet up, and more stuff happens. Like, people from the first volume become evil in the second volume. It's a very fun story. I don't want to give more of a synopsis than that because you'd have to read the first one, but I really love the art style. I think it's fun. I've said in the past it's kind of light. It's not that heavy in terms of the violence. Yes, there's violence. Obviously, there's superpowers fighting evil, but it's not grotesque. So if you're looking for something kind of fun and fantasy, look no further. My next 5-star graphic novel is a new love to me, and that is Space Boy Volume 1. I absolutely fell in love with it. It reads like middle grade, probably, is what I would say. It's about a girl who lives in space on a ship. She's lived there her whole life. Her father is a miner. He loses his job and they have to go back to Earth, and it's about her reacclimating to, not even reacclimating because she's never lived there, acclimating to Earth. She's not used to the air, she's not used to the kind of people and the technology they're using, and you're following her in school trying to learn how to be social on Earth. It's heartwarming, and it's an honest look at her age and how you would feel having to move like that, because she has to cryogenically get frozen. So when she wakes up on Earth, it's 30 years later, but she hasn't aged a day. So her old best friends in space are like in their mid to late 30s, and she's still a young girl. So very interesting. I really can't wait for more to come forward. I have the second volume to read this month. I can't wait to see what happens. And unshockingly, my favorite 5-star graphic novel of the month is Death Note Volume 2, the Black Edition, so technically Volumes 3 and 4. I am loving this. I've gone over the synopsis ad nauseum, but the quick gist of it is that a Shinigami, a death god, Ryuk, drops a notebook onto Earth for a human to find. That notebook is called the Death Note. When you write a name in it, and you can picture the person whose name that is, you kill them. They die of a heart attack or however you've written them to die in the notebook. Light Yagami is the boy that finds it. He's a high schooler. He then becomes a megalomaniac, decides he's going to play God, and takes the moral high ground and kills people based on what he thinks is right. And the story at this point is about him trying to evade being found out by the police. Very fascinating, very twisted, keeping it forward and like trying to see how Light is using his ability to stay in the clear is incredibly fascinating. I'm absolutely loving this. I can't wait to read the rest. Moving on to novels, I have 2 3 stars and 5 5 stars. Is that right? 5, 6, 7, yeah. 2 3 stars and 5 5 stars. It was an insanely good reading month. I kind of hoped it would be because I had some really anticipated reads on it. I had 2 readathons, I believe, or maybe it was just 1 readathon and a read along. So my first 3-star read is Merry Inkmas by Talia Hibbert. Chandler at Chandler Ainsley hosted this read-along on Twitter. I'll link her down below. It is a romance novel. It was free on Amazon, so I downloaded it and joined in. It was a quick read. Romance isn't my favorite genre. I can appreciate it, but that doesn't mean that I really like it. So what I feel on this might not be what a romance reader would feel themselves. I don't have a whole lot in that genre to hold up against it. But it's a story about a barista, a coffee barista that kind of falls for one of her clients, but he is also coming to the coffee shop just to see her, and things happen so that they end up working together, and obviously there's sexual tension and chemistry. I didn't really enjoy their relationship. I thought his past that caused him to be problematic in how he treated the main girl, I just didn't like it. It kind of falls into, if you saw my wrap up or my worst of reading and how I felt about the kiss quotient, it came again down to communication. There just wasn't any, and I guess in the like grand scheme of things, the book isn't really about that. It isn't portraying a healthy relationship, but also if you're looking for smut, there wasn't a whole lot of it in this book either, so it just wasn't really redeeming. I thought it was convenient and cliche too, so it was a 3-star for me. It wasn't the worst, it wasn't the best, but I'm probably not the person to look to on a fair review of it. So hopefully Chandler or anyone else who came in on the readathon and is doing a wrap-up for it will have opinions on it that are more succinct and in line than mine. My next 3-star read is The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. This was cute. It was a YA contemporary about a girl who is stuck in an airport in Denver on New Year's Eve. There's a giant snowstorm, everything's grounded. She meets a boy and they spend the next 24 hours together. They both have secrets they've kept from each other that they don't want the other to know. The girl is obsessed with her phone because of something that had happened in her life the year previous, and it's her working through her problems with the help of this new strange boy and them kind of falling for each other in this airport when they're about to go in separate directions. Well, actually, I think they both end up in California, just different places in California. It was very cute. It was a little bit repetitive and a little bit frustrating at times, but generally speaking, it was a very quick read. It was, as I said, it was a cute little read. I don't think it had the best language when it was trying to depict people, both physically and mentally, but the book did have a pretty decent take on how loss can affect someone mentally and emotionally. I think that was an interesting fact, or an interesting plot device in this story. I got it from Book Outlet on like a whim, and I don't regret it. Not my favorite though. Now we're getting into 5-star reads, and I really loved all the books I read that were 5 stars. So again, just like the graphic novels, I can't really say that one came above the other. They were all just pretty good for in their own way. We'll start with a book that I've put off for a very long time, and I don't know why, because honestly, I love mythology, and this writer is one of my absolute favorites of all time, and that is Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I finally got to it. I read it on ebook, even though I checked it out from the library, and I read like a story a night. There's not really an overarching plot except to say that it's about Odin and Loki and Thor, primarily Loki, and it's just little short stories that take a lot of the truth of the mythology, the very basis of the stories, but add a Neil Gaiman flair to it, which if you read the introduction is basically what he was going for. I had a lot of fun with it. I do intend to buy it at some point to have for my Neil Gaiman collection, which you can't see but is above me. If you like mythology at all, if you enjoyed like Circe or you've read any other Greek, Roman, any kind of mythology, this is a fun and very fast read. My next 5 star is one that I literally finished. It was the last book of 2018. I finished it on the 30th, and that is Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I love the Nevermore series. I can't wait for the next book. I need her to write it now. I need her to publish it soon. It won't happen. Wondersmith just came out in, I believe, October, maybe even November. It's so good. So the first story, Nevermore, about Morrigan Crow. She's a girl who lives in a world where cursed children exist and they die at a specific time. She's a cursed child. She's expecting to die at the turn of the year, but she is saved by someone from a place called Nevermore, and his name is Jupiter North, and he becomes her guardian in Nevermore. She goes through trials to try and get into this society of people that have magic knacks. She doesn't think she has a knack. She's cursed, so she thinks that she's come to this world by mistake, that she was saved by mistake, that she is not important at all, but of course, as a lot of middle grade goes, she's very important. Wondersmith is a continuation of that, so I can't really say much without spoiling it, but you've probably heard it reads a lot like Harry Potter. It's got kind of the same arc as Harry Potter. It's about kids that get into shit that if they just maybe involved adults wouldn't get into shit. Now in Wondersmith, she's going to school to learn about her powers, her knacks, her fellow students. It's very whimsical, it's very magical. They read very fast because they're middle grade. I'm in love with it. I gave the first book, Nevermore, 4 stars, but upon reflection, it's definitely more of a 4.5, 5-star read for me. The beginning was kind of slow, only because I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I think if I reread it now, it would be an easy 5-star for me. It's one of my new favorite series. I really can't wait to see where it goes. I get the same heart feeling as I did reading Harry Potter growing up, so I think that it really has a possibility of establishing itself as this generation's Harry Potter. I love it. Next 2 are the final in a series that I've been long awaiting finishing, and that is Blue Lily Lily Blue and The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. I finally finished the Raven cycle, not because I was putting it off, because I didn't want to. Well, actually, yes, that's exactly why. I didn't want to end this journey. I really didn't. I love Gansey, I love Ronan, I love Blue, I love Noah, I love Adam. I literally don't have a favorite amongst the group. It's a story about 4 boys that go to this prep school that are looking for the Raven King, it's Glendower, and they live on a ley line, so a bunch of weird magical stuff happens in their town, and Gansey has devoted his life to finding this Raven King because he has a near-death experience and he's saved by Glendower at some point in his life, so now he wants to find this king. Blue is a girl who lives in a house full of psychics. Her mother's a psychic and the women she lives with are. She is not a psychic, but she has the ability to further people's powers. They do better at their readings with her. She wants nothing to do with these boys, but of course they end up best friends, and they kind of pick up this journey together, and a lot of very weird shit happens in each of the books, and I've loved every single one of them. The Raven Cycle is a very polarizing read because it is weird, and some people don't like the weird. I loved the weird. I'm really sad it's over. I said in my best books of 2018 that I will reread these some days, but I'm going to put a couple years between now and then, let it sit, read some new stuff, see what I think in a few years. Love it. Love it. Check it out if you like weird, whimsical, magical, character-driven stories. And last, but certainly not least, one of my favorites of December is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I loved Vicious. I expected to love Vengeful. I have one critique we'll get to in a minute, but the plot is in Vicious, because this is a sequel, that Eli and Victor are best friends at a college. Eli has this idea that he knows how people can gain a superpower, and that is to have a near-death experience. So he and Victor both decide they're going to try and gain powers by dying and coming back. And they succeed, so the rest of the story becomes a fight of power as they both think that they need to negate the other one, essentially. This continues that feud, but also adds in new characters. I loved the new characters. Specifically, it's funny, I read and heard a lot about Marcella, who's one of the new main characters, and while she is an absolute badass, she was not my favorite character. I really liked the underrated June. I am interested to see more of June, to hear her background. She had a lot going on, but I think it's funny that people really like Marcella, because I feel like Marcella was a character that very much didn't have control, and V.E. Schwab herself tweeted about how Vengeful was a story about men losing power and women taking power, and it was a very confusing tweet for me, having read it, because I don't agree at all. I think that the men in this story had as much power as they did in the first one. Their feud was fueling everything they did, motivating them. I think the women really didn't know what they were doing. One was motivated by revenge, and she was chaos. The other was motivated by something I'm not really sure what yet, and I don't think that either of them gained power over men. I am uncertain where that came from. If that was the goal, it wasn't met, but for me that doesn't really matter because I really loved the story regardless. I love character-driven stories, and this is not going to change anytime soon. All of my favorites are going to be very character-based. This is no exception. I'm absolutely in love with the Villains series. That said, that is it for me, guys. Those are all the books I read in December. As I said, it was a really great month. I don't know if it's toppable, but what a way to end a year. What did you guys read in December? What is your favorite books? Have you read any of these? Do you agree with my assessment of them? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, like if you've liked this video, subscribe if you are new here and want to see more content from me. All of my social media is linked down below so we can be friends on other platforms. Otherwise, guys, have a great new year, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!